The night rock music changed forever.
Here are the Beatles!
The Beatles, live at Shea Stadium, 1965. On August 15th, 1965, something happened that music history would never forget. Not in a recording studio, not on television, but inside a baseball stadium in New York City. This was the night rock music grew larger than life. This was Shea Stadium. Beatlemania goes nuclear. By 1965, the Beatles weren't just a band. They were a global phenomenon. Their songs dominated radio. Their faces filled magazines. Their haircuts sparked arguments at dinner tables. And Beatlemania was spiraling completely out of control. This was the Beatles live at Shea Stadium. Promoters wondered, could a rock band really fill an entire stadium? The answer came fast. 55,600 screaming fans, the largest audience any rock act had ever played for. A world record. A world in the grip of Beatlemania. By 1965, the Beatles weren't just a successful band, they were a global cultural force. In just 3 years, John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr had gone from playing clubs in Liverpool and Hamburg to dominating charts across Europe, America, and beyond. Their records sold in the millions. Their appearances on television caused mass hysteria. Their influence stretched far beyond music, into fashion, language, and youth identity. The press would later give it a name, Beatlemania.
We'd like to do a slow song now that I say I come right behind home, my Google, and it goes off Beatles 6 or something. I don't even know what it's off.
Screaming crowds, fainting fans, emergency exits wherever they went. No artist before them had experienced anything like it. Yet, even in the middle of this chaos, one question remained unanswered. Could rock music survive outside the theater? Could a rock band really fill an entire stadium? The answer came fast. 55,600 screaming fans, the largest audience any rock act had ever played for. A world record. The gamble no one had taken before. Before 1965, large stadiums were reserved for sports, political rallies, and major events. Music, especially rock music, was considered too loud, too unpredictable, and too technically challenging for such spaces. Promoters believed the sound would be impossible to control. Musicians feared they wouldn't be heard. Record executives worried it would fail. But Beatles manager Brian Epstein saw something different. If the Beatles were truly the biggest band in the world, then why shouldn't they play the biggest venue? After negotiations with New York promoters, Shea Stadium, home of the New York Mets, was selected. Capacity, over 55,000 seats. No rock artist had ever attempted anything close to this scale. Tickets went on sale. They sold out almost instantly. Preparing for the impossible. Security planners faced an unprecedented challenge. More than 2,000 police officers were assigned to the event. Fans were expected to rush the field. Emergency exits were mapped. Ambulances were placed on standby. Even the Beatles themselves were unsure what awaited them. They were flown in by helicopter to avoid the crowds outside the stadium. They entered through underground tunnels hidden from view. Inside the stadium, a small circular stage was set up in the middle of the field, raised slightly above ground level. It looked modest, almost fragile. No one yet realized how small it truly was. A sound system not built for music. One of the greatest challenges was sound. Modern concert technology did not exist. There were no massive speaker arrays, no digital mixing desks, no in-ear monitors. The Beatles used Vox amplifiers, the same ones they played in theaters and TV studios. The Shea Stadium's PA system was designed for baseball announcements, not music. Engineers hoped it would be good enough. It wasn't. The moment arrives. As the sun began to set over Queens, the stadium filled with noise long before the music started. Screams echoed through the stands. Fans waved signs, cried, and shouted names. Some had been waiting since morning. When the Beatles finally appeared on the field, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. The sound of the crowd drowned out everything. Even the band members would later admit they could barely hear a single note. But there was no turning back. The concert had begun. The performance. The Beatles opened with Twist and Shout.
We'd like to do a slow song now. And it goes off Beatles 6 or something. I don't really know what it's off.
Or at least they tried to. The screaming was so intense that the vocals vanished into the air. The guitars blended into noise. Ringo relied on visual cues rather than sound. Yet something remarkable happened. Despite the technical chaos, the energy was undeniable. The band moved through a 12-song set, including She's a Woman, I Feel Fine, A Hard Day's Night, Help, Ticket to Ride, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby. Each song lasted only a few minutes. There were no extended solos, no breaks between tracks. The Beatles knew they were racing against the noise. And still, every seat was filled. Every eye was fixed on the stage. What the audience heard and didn't hear. The music itself was secondary. What mattered was presence. They had seen the Beatles. They had shared the same air. They had been part of something historic. Some fans later admitted they heard almost nothing. Others claimed they knew every song so well they could fill in the gaps. The experience was emotional rather than musical, and that in itself was revolutionary. A concert watched around the world. The performance was filmed by multiple cameras and later broadcast internationally. For viewers at home, the sight was shocking. A rock band playing in a baseball stadium, crowds screaming uncontrollably, music no longer confined to polite spaces. This was not entertainment. This was cultural transformation. Young musicians everywhere took note. If the Beatles could do this, why couldn't anyone else? The birth of the stadium concert. Shea Stadium proved something critical. Rock music was not a fad. It was not a teenage distraction. It was powerful enough to command massive spaces and massive audiences. In the years that followed, artists would expand on what the Beatles had begun. Better sound systems, larger stages, more ambitious productions. But the blueprint was set on that night in August 1965. Every stadium tour that came after, every arena show, every massive outdoor festival can trace its roots back to Shea Stadium. The hidden cost. Yet for the Beatles themselves, the experience was exhausting. They were frustrated by the sound, disconnected from the audience, overwhelmed by the chaos. For musicians who cared deeply about songwriting and performance, the inability to hear themselves was discouraging. Within a year, they would make a historic decision. They would stop touring entirely. the end of an era and the start of another. After 1966, the Beatles retreated into the studio. Freed from the demands of live performance, they began experimenting. Layered recordings, new instruments, concept albums. The result would be some of the most influential music ever recorded. In a strange way, Shea Stadium marked both a beginning and an ending. The beginning of the stadium concert and the end of the Beatles as a live touring band. Why Shea Stadium still matters. Today, when artists sell out stadiums with perfect sound and massive visuals, it's easy to forget how risky it once was. In 1965, nothing was guaranteed. There was no precedent, no safety net, no roadmap. Just 4 musicians, a roaring crowd, and a belief that music could be bigger. Shea Stadium wasn't about perfection, it was about possibility. A night that lives forever. August 15th, 1965. 55,600 fans. One band, one moment that changed music history. The Beatles didn't just play a concert that night, they expanded the boundaries of what live music could be. And the echoes of Shea Stadium are still heard today. More than half a century later, the echoes of that night still linger, not because it was perfect, but because it was powerful. On August 15th, 1965, the Beatles didn't just play a concert at Shea Stadium, they changed the scale of music forever. Every stadium show that followed carries a trace of that moment. Every roar of a crowd still answers back to Shea. And sometimes history isn't made in silence, it's made in screams. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy preserving music's greatest moments, subscribe for more legendary stories.